A pleasure to meet y'all at last. Now welcome back to Why's That? I know I had to take some breaks in between here and there, but I do manage to get some episodes recorded until that time. And when the time ends is where I'll have some more episodes uploaded. Each time I take these breaks, well, it's only to start recording and continue filming with any of the episodes I've already done. Usually I take about 3 episodes at a time, but that's probably not going to be part of the episode. As for this part of the episode, it's the question that gears towards the actual series. Why is that? And why is that, of course, are the 2 words that should begin the sentence of your question. Otherwise, they will not be accepted. That's the bottom line. But for this question that I'm here to answer right now, there's a really big number of people out there who have asked me that. And I will only give several people a shout out in the form of a screenshot along with the comment that it wrote. The question was, well, from one viewer, it was, why is that you take it upon yourself to tell the truth all the time? And some of the others, well, they had similar answers, or they might have just copied down that answer from that viewer. But as you can see right now, there are multiple viewers of my channel and multiple Twitter users who have tweeted me that particular question. So the bottom line is that we got ourselves quite a popular question going on, and today I'm going to be putting out the answer to it. To start off, well, I take upon myself to tell the truth all the time, because with many people these days, there's just a point where trustworthiness is not going to work out just as you might hope. And second of which would involve the fact that with today's society, with people having too much liberty and freedom to the point at which they just don't care about what happens to them as a consequence as to what their actions could gear them towards. No wonder why we got so many arrests taking place this whole decade. There's just lots of people out there we can hardly even trust, or we can't trust at all. And lying, of course, is a really big factor in this, because they try to get you to think that they are okay in one ways, or they are safe, or they are in any ways possible out of the question. But of course, all of those are lies. And there's a lot of lies in the internet too. There's so many fake news, as millennials will call it, but I just call it spam. Anyone from Generation X, like myself, or anybody else would call it spam. Millennials would have called it fake news. I wonder what Generation Z, though, would call it. When that time comes, I'm going to find out what Generation Z would call it. What kind of a synonymous word would play into this kind of particular role. As to words that are synonymous with fake and the like. Lying, however, is also something else that's way worse than I would have found out. Because if you've not seen the movie Liar Liar from 97, starring Jim Carrey, there's one particular part of the movie of where he sets up a quote that I take it upon myself, and I would surely encourage anybody else to take it upon themselves, to tell the truth. And like he says, the truth will set you free. And there's no doubt about that at this point in time. And there's lots more to go than just one lie that can actually revolve around what the future of your world would end up like. And there's no telling what could happen. With all the lies we're being told, with all the other bits of slander that we are being offered to by others, there's just no telling what the world would end up like with all of the truth that's not coming out of anybody's mouths. Because telling lies, of course, is a really nasty thing. It's a rotten, and I just do not ever want to lie. That's just my biggest that's just probably my biggest enemy, of course, would be liars. Those would be my biggest enemies of all time. They're just pathological liars. Those would be my biggest enemies of all time. If anybody were to be a pathological liar right now, you're the enemy right now. I just tagged you with my fingertip. That you were the enemy of mine, being a pathological liar, of course. And there's just nothing else we can really do about it, of course. They're pathological liars. They might have been pre-programmed by genetic codes to lie all the time and to not really have a sense to control it. But of course, time can always come by and just wipe the thought of lying clean, because with time passing, as we're becoming adults in the likelihood, that lying can be an all-time low, because we would decide to tell the truth more often, as we've learned that lying to, let's say, our parents, our friends, anybody else around here was a really nasty thing to do. And telling the truth, of course, is going to be a really, really huge advantage in your lifetime. By far, though, in terms of myself telling the truth all the time, well, if you've not seen a video from Good Mythical Morning called The Most Honest Man on Earth, then, well, I'd suppose my biggest goal of all time would be way more honest than he does. And even though my honesty sometimes guarantees the fact that people would end up frowning upon me just for being honest to them, it's really none of my concern, because as long as I tell the truth all the time, then everybody should be happy about me. Being honest all the time is not going to be an easy game, and it's definitely not a piece of cake either that you can just simply cut with a regular knife. But of course, there's always people out there who would definitely want to tell the truth to you. And there's also, well, get this, filler words are something that I also tend to eliminate all the time, and that is the reason why in some of my vlogs and whatnot, you would be able to find out that I tend to take a long, silent pause in between sentences. And this is because I eliminate filler words from my repertoire of the American language, vocabulary of which I can currently speak. And I would definitely put up long, silent pauses over using filler words at any given time that I cannot simply think of any words to say quick enough, but of which I do tend to think about what kind of words I use quick enough. So it's all good from there. But here's another important factor about lying and telling the truth that many of which do not seem to understand at this point. With lying, there's definitely a huge chance that anybody out there could even end up in prison, which is called fraud in terms of justice. It's known as fraud in justice. We've called it lies. And of course, insurance fraud should not be something everybody should do. It shouldn't be something anybody should do. Fraud to anything, of course, is a really dirty thing that anybody out there could do. And so telling the truth, of course, it may hurt one person's feelings, but it surely won't upset the balance of your reputation being an innocent person on this planet. And having your record, well, administered just because you tried to hide something from your family, let's say. If you've not seen that one episode from, well, that show, Good Morning USA, I've always known it as, Stan Smith lied to his insurance agent. Although I don't know why I keep bringing up animated shows into something like this, because, well, all of that stuff is copyrighted content, and it's claimed by their owners. Good Morning USA is owned by Fox and Seth MacFarlane. Liar Liar, of course, is part of Jim Carrey's work, and so I don't know why I keep making references to movies and shows when I plan to have my channel put out in original content. Though I am going to find out soon enough. Lying and telling the truth, a lot of people seem to want to be in the very middle. Sometimes they want to lie to someone just to make them feel better about themselves. Sometimes they want to tell the truth because they don't want to get in trouble. But for me, telling the truth all the time, it may get me in trouble sometimes, but at least it feels better than to get in even more trouble by lying. And so, you've got yourself quite a big point there that you probably would make at any given time. Telling the truth all the time is definitely not going to be very easy for anybody, but of course, with the experience I've had in the last 8 years with being honest all the time, there is not even the slightest possibility that I would even feel like lying, because telling the truth just felt much better for me. It made me feel much better about myself. It definitely brought my esteem to a level this high rather than here in the middle where some people are average. And there's also lots of other factors about me that made me feel much better, made me feel very relieved at the fact that lying is no longer going to be a determinant factor in my lifetime. Unless, of course, if somebody were to lie to me, even my closest friends of all time, there's just no telling what I would end up in. I would end up in a huge mess and just mostly emotionally mess, but there's also a good chance that a mental mess or a vocal mess might also play a big role in this kind of scenario that involves one very close friend of yours lying to you about something just to either hide it or make you feel better about yourself. Hide it. From this point forward, however, there's really not going to be any turning back for me, because telling the truth all the time is definitely also going to have itself a much bigger advantage than me if I keep on doing it right, which I do. Because it goes like this. If, for say, I smash someone's plate, I be honest to them and tell them I broke the plate, sir, or madam, or any other gender in the world. And if someone were to ask me if I were the one to cut the cable even, I would tell them I did it. Because it's not even that hard to do, really. On the topic of the fact that, on the contrary, because there's also other parts to it that I have done, and I have told them the truth about it, and I would not, absolutely not, take the blame for anybody else. I would most likely let them take the blame for themselves for something they did, and I wouldn't want to take the blame for something I did not do. Because it's not entirely my responsibility to take the blame for somebody that did something. Or say they broke into a bank and stole every penny out of that place. I would not take the blame for it. I would rather have them take the blame for it. And many people will call me a jerk, but being honest all the time really has its own advantages than just having yourself feel like you've been rewarded multiple times at once by multiple people out there. Because telling the truth out there also, it's not just a rewarding experience. It's not just something that you can feel good about. It's not just something that can raise your esteem to an all-time high, sky high, but it's also something else that can really put forth your education and anywhere else in the future. Because telling the truth all the time, being honest about your homework, if you didn't do it or not, or you did it, it most certainly will help you to tell the truth about it. Because lying about it, let's say you get a 0 on it, and you were supposed to get 100 on it, and then you just end up failing the class, well, putting up fraudulence is a dirty move, and here's my point of view on the whole thing. Here's one scenario in which one person of the whole classroom ends up getting a 0 on its assignment. From what I could tell, I mean, that person would have a guarantee to have itself a detention, or probably even worse, if it was a repeat offender or someone like that, then it would have suspension, or even worse, it would have expulsion. And it's all because it lied about its homework. the person that ended up getting expelled for lying about its homework and possibly doing other things along than just fraud with its homework. It's all on them. It's all on it. It's on nobody else exactly except for the person who got expelled. That's the bottom line here. But here's scenario number 2, in which he does tell the truth about his homework. Then he'll have a guarantee to not have as bad of a detention as it would have gotten when it lied about its homework. The point here that I made just like that is that telling the truth could even spare your life from becoming a ride on the rails. And that would be a really awful time for you. Riding the rails instead of getting on track with your homework and on track with your school time and on track with everything else that occurs during your lifetime is also going to play a really big role on you in the future. And the time comes, you graduate from high school, you move on to college, and then after a certain number of years that you go into college and you eventually graduate from there, you eventually get your first job, your first interview, you make your first resume, you hand them all in, and you also have your first job done. You tell the truth about yourself throughout the whole thing, and you are going to have one heck of a life waiting for you. Anyhow, though, I mean, telling the truth is just making me want to start applying right now so I can tell anybody the truth about me. But, of which I can't right now because of Social Security, and I guess there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do about it, really. But if you want to see more, go down on Why's That, go down on my channel overall, make sure that you put your question in the form of a Why's That question. Start with the 2 words, Why's That, and then give me your question. You can put it down in the comments section below, or you can tweet me your question. Any one of those would work, just don't private message me anymore. Because if you've not already watched a similar episode that I made quite some time ago, well, I discussed the part of which that I would no longer be accepting private messages as a form for somebody to use when creating a Why's That question and then sending it off to me. Just the comment section below on my YouTube channel videos, or just tweet me your question. Either format would work, just don't use private messaging anymore because that's just not going to work well for others. And if you want to see more other than just all that, make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.